Good day, everybody. I hope that you're well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 7 English lesson on dialogues and quotations, or quotations and dialogues. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once you've logged on to aplusstudents.ca, our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English Language Arts. We're doing grade 7. And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to our chapter of quotations and dialogues. So that is the chapter for today, quotations and dialogues. All right. So we said our chapter is quotations and dialogues. Our subject is English Language Arts. We're doing grade 7. And the lessons that we are going to be focusing on under the chapter of quotations and dialogues is formatting quotations and dialogues. All right. So when it comes to quotations and dialogues, right? When quotations is when, let's say, for example, you are either researching something or you're writing something. Now it means that you need to quote what the person had said. And then it means that you need to reference that person or you need to reference the source. That is what we will call it. Right? And that is what we mean by quotations and dialogues. You need to reference that source by using quotation marks. Whatever someone also says, you need to write that in quotation marks. And then, if you are repeating what the person had said, then you need to put it in quotation marks, and then you, for example, state what the person had said. Right? So when it comes to quotations and dialogues, right, we can use quotation marks around a direct quotation from a speaker or a written source. Speaker meaning, if you quote what I say, then um, you need to put it in quotation marks, because now I have become the speaker. And if you basically repeat what I have said, and then it means that you need to, for example, say it in or put it in quotation marks. When we talk about the written sources, then written sources are like your books or articles that you get your information from. And a direct quotation can be written in many ways, right? In several ways, and we are going to find out how we can write a direct quotation. All right. So there are many ways in which we can write our direct quotations, right? And one of the ways in which we can write our direct quotation is when a quotation comes after the speaker tag. Oopsie. So that is when it comes after the speaker tag. The quotation can come after the speaker tag. And when we talk about the speaker tag, then it's like, for example, saying that this person said, this person declared, this person thought, and then you say whatever you need to say by putting it in quotation marks. And if we look at an example, right, of a quotation or sentence that comes after a speaker tag, and then we can say, the speaker declared, right? So, like we said, the speaker tag is when the speaker says, the speaker declared, the speaker demanded, he said, she said, right? The speaker declared, we can succeed by working together. And as you can see, it first says the speaker declared, it's telling us what the speaker had said. And now, in quotation marks, you're writing what the speaker had said, which is, we can succeed by working together. Another example, right, of a quotation that comes after a speaker tag is when we say he demanded. Who's there? Because now the person is not saying who's there. So who's there? So he demanded. And as you can see, that question mark is inside of the quotation mark. The question mark is inside of the quotation mark. So that is two examples of quotations that comes after speaker tags. And you can use a comma, and that is to separate the speaker tags from the quotation. That is when we use our comma. And that is to separate the speaker tag from the quotation, which is something like this. He demanded, comma. The speaker declared, comma. And then we capitalize the first word of the quotation. All right, so we use a comma to separate the speaker tag from the quotation. And then we capitalize the first word that is within the quotation mark, or within the quotation, sorry. All right, and then the next one says, remember we said we use quotation marks around a direct quotation from a speaker or a written source. And it can be written in many different ways. So we found out the one way where the quotation can come after the speaker tag, right? But now another example or way is where the quotation comes before the speaker tag. So it comes before the speaker tag. And if we look at examples, right, of the quotation that can come before the speaker tag, it means, and remember we said the speaker tag is like saying, he said, she said, right? That is a speaker tag. So if we look at an example, it says, we can succeed by working together, the speaker declared. So we can succeed by working together, the speaker declared. And that is our first sentence. All right. And then if we look at another example, right, where we can say, who's there? He demanded. So instead of saying he demanded who's there, we can say who's there? He demanded. All right. So quotations can come before a speaker tag or it can come after a speaker tag, right? And unless the quotation ends with a question mark or an explanation point, then you need to separate it from the speaker tag with just a comma. Do not capitalize the speaker tag unless it begins with a proper noun or the pronoun I. All right. And if we, for example, remember this is now where the speaker tag, it, let's say, or wait, where the quotation is before the speaker tag. And remember, we need to, unless, because now the quotation mark is literally like in front, it's the start of the sentence. So, unless the quotation ends with a question mark or explanation point, you need to separate. You need to separate it from a speaker tag with just a comma. All right. And then also, when it comes to, for example, our quotations and dialogues, that can also be interrupted by another speaker tag, which is a quotation can be interrupted by the speaker tag. Because now you become confused. All right. And remember, when it comes to quotations and it comes to dialogues, you need to, anything that is written or anything that is, for example, any written information or anything that somebody speaks, like anything that I, for example, say, and you want to say it directly, and then it means that you need to, for example, put it in quotation marks. Because whatever somebody says needs to be in quotation marks. For example, like this. And then we say what the person had said. Or if the key comes before, then you first say, we can succeed, right? So that is but a few examples of how we can use quotations and dialogues. All right. So when a quotation can be interrupted by a speaker tag, right? Like for example, we can succeed, or the speaker declared, or by saying by working together, we need to use commas to separate the speaker tags from the quotations. And we do not capitalize the second part of the quotation. And then commas and periods, it always goes inside when you're closing your quotation marks. Meaning, when you're closing your quotation marks, you're writing something, you're first opening your quotation mark, now you're writing, and then either, for example, any commas or any periods, it needs to be inside of your quotation mark. Then we have question marks and exclamation points. That should also go inside only when they are part of a quotation. Only when they are part of a quotation. All right. So we say that when it comes to periods, when it comes to commas, and how we can use it, periods and commas always go inside a closing quotation mark. Something like this. We have our period and we have a comma inside of that quotation mark. And then question marks and exclamation marks, question marks, exclamation points should only go inside when they are part of a quotation. All right. And if we look at an example once again before we go to our test, it says, who's there? And this basically shows that the speaker tag is after the quotation. Who's there? Or we can say, he demanded. And if we look at that to examples, it says that is where, for example, it shows us where our question mark is. And our question mark is inside of that quotation. And now it says also, when it comes to quotations and when it comes to dialogues, guys, remember keeping in mind anything that somebody says or anything that you have read and you want to utter it as your own. So here it says that you need to, for example, put your commas. You can get commas, so you can get quotations, and then maybe you can have the key tags before your quotation or after your quotation, but still it will do the same job. All right. And no matter, for example, what the person says, anything that you're going to repeat needs to be quoted, right? All right, so let's look at an example. It says, don't judge me by my age. I won't judge you by yours. And that is the gray haired man said with a wink. And even if you look at that, for example, quotation, whatever he said, don't judge me by my age, and I won't judge you by yours. That is in quotation marks, comma even, before we close that quotation. And then we say what the next person had said. All right. So now let's go to our test where we are going to format quotations and we're going to format dialogues. And before we go to our test, right? Anything that somebody says, whether it is saying or anything that is written, it needs to be quoted, right? It needs to be quoted. You need to say what the person had said, whether the person is saying it out front or whether the person has it written down. All right, so now we're going to formatting quotations and dialogues. We need to correct any errors in capitalization or punctuation. Your answer should be a single sentence. If we look at these two, right, we are going to choose the correct one. It says, if we can accept our ecological responsibility now, future generations will be grateful that we took good care of the earth, concluded the speaker. And that is why, remember, we said that we can even say it's a speaker or somebody that wrote something, right? But either way, whether you take something that belonged to the person that wrote it, their words, then it needs to be quote, it needs to be in quotation marks. So now we're going to choose the correct one, option one or option two. And look at where the commas are, look at where the periods are. So is it option one or option two? So is it option one that is correct or option two that is correct? And if we are going to choose the correct option, And then we go with the first one because the second one, the comma is outside of the quotation mark. The next one says we need to correct any errors in capitalization or punctuation. The first one says, although some people may consider dandelions to be noxious weeds, Brittany mused, I think they are lovely. All right. And if we were to choose the correct option, which says, although some people may consider dandelions to be noxious weeds, Brittany mused, is it the first one or the second one? Look at how it is punctuated. All right. And if we were to choose the correct one, to show basically also where the punctuations are, and then we'll go with the second one. The first one, the commas as well as periods is outside of the quotations. If you look at the next one, it says we need to correct any errors in capitalization or in punctuation. All right, the next one we need to correct any errors in capitalization. So it's the first one that says never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world, the anthropologist Megan Mead declared. Or is it option two? Never doubt that small group of thoughtful. committed citizens. All right, so we need to choose the correct option. Option one or option two. First one or the second one. All right, and if we choose the correct option, remember we are looking specifically at punctuations, how it is written. So we need to say specifically by looking at the punctuations, if if a comma is inside, should it be outside or vice versa? Never doubt that a small group of thoughtfulness, committed citizens can change the world, the anthropologist Megan Mead declared. All right. So here we have our open quotations. All right. So the comma is inside. All right. So we our punctuations was inside of the jacket. So your commas needs to be there, your punctuations needs to be there, your periods needs to be there, and we say that when it comes to um, dialogues and quotations, then it means that it needs to be inside of that quotations. All right, so here we're going to correct the errors in capitalization and in punctuations, right? It says you always know you've learned something well. All right, and if we were to choose the correct one, but keeping in mind the punctuations, right? And if we choose the correct one, we'll go with option two. Yes, we go with option two, right? Because remember, you need to, when we write something, you need to state and claim that this is what I got from. because that is what quotation marks are about. All right, so we now need to choose the correct one. It says, it wasn't until I heard an elephant in my own room, in my own, sorry, it wasn't until I heard an apartment of my own that I learned to be self reliant. So it wasn't until I had an apartment of my own that I learned to be self reliant. My father admitted. All right. So now it says that we need to correct any errors in punctuation, in capitalization or in punctuation. All right. And now, if we are going to, so we are formatting quotations and dialogues. It says the first one says, it wasn't until I had an apartment of my own that I learned to be self-reliant, my father admitted. So we're going to choose any errors, right? Or we're going to correct any errors in capitalization or in punctuation. It says, if or it wasn't until I had an apartment of my own, I learned to be self reliant, my father said. So now, if you look at the punctuations, right? Remember, a period and a comma needs to be inside. All right. And if we are going to choose the correct one says, it wasn't until I had an apartment of my own that I learned to be self reliant, my father admitted. And if we were to choose the correct one, we will choose the second option. Because the first option, the punctuation marks are not properly. All right, so this is now the end of our lesson on quotations and dialogues. Remember, when writing, whenever you quote whatever someone had said, whether it is what somebody says out loud or if it is an article, right? Books or anything that you are quoting, or you want to basically say what that person has said, then it means that you need to quote it. And when you quote it, you need to put the necessary and the proper punctuations to show, for example, that you are, it's almost like you're acknowledging their work, right? All right, so this is the end of our lesson. Thank you very much, grade 7, for joining the class, and I really hope you're going to have a good day further. All right, so this is the end of our lesson. Thank you very much, grade 7, for joining the class, and I really hope you're going to have a good evening further. So till next time, goodbye.